All right, we're here again at the SSA 2025 Summer Conference. And for Faith in Question, this is Vanessa with us today. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
And you're at your very first
I
SSA
am very
conference.
excited. Love
All
it
right.
so far.
And are you part of an SSA group you're from North Carolina, is that right? Living in North Carolina?
Yes, I am. So I'm a recent graduate. I've always kind of been active on campus just with like the Christian groups and talking to them. So I did meet a couple of secular atheists there.
But it wasn't SSA officially.
Not officially. And I was like in my last year of school, so it was kind of hard to get in and start a chapter.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there wasn't one at your campus.
No, unfortunately.
And yet you somehow have heard about it and you're here.
Yes. I like to be active. I think I signed up for the emails. I started talking to one of the like representatives, Chase, and he really got me interested in it. And I was like, you know what, I should just do it. Meet other people that are like-minded.
And you come from Charlotte, I think you said?
Yes, Charlotte,
right?
North Carolina.
So you drove up here from Charlotte or flew or what?
I flew, yeah.
And you came alone? You didn't come
I
with
did, yeah, solo.
So there's not like an SSA chapter in Charlotte that you're meeting with on any kind of regular basis?
No. There was one individual I was going to drive up with, but unfortunately I got into an accident, so I flew that way. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that. So, very, very sorry to hear that. I hope they're okay.
All good. It
Okay,
was just,
all right.
yeah.
Just unfortunate accident, bad timing. All right, so let's go back then to would you, when you were younger, is it likely you would have been coming to an SSA convention?
No, I grew up Mormon, and
In North Carolina?
I'm an Army brat, so I've moved all over, which was interesting to kind of see the different churches because, religion is very much cultural. So I never actually grew up like conservative or anything. We were always like Jack Mormons. We listened to
Did you
secular.
say Jack Mormons?
Yes,
I've not heard this term.
it's like the Mormons that aren't like super polished and have that glaze over their eyes. So we would listen to secular music like Dave Matthews and occasionally swear and.
But still attended
Church weekly.
Yeah.
And other activities. So I didn't necessarily experience, I think, like a lot of people that unfortunately do, where they experience either like oppression or abuse through the church. But I started to slowly recognize the inequalities that were present in religion and in the LDS, Latter-day Saints. They've recently rebranded to kind of make themselves a little bit more Protestant and digestible. But I've always been a radical person. I've always challenged authority. So, even when I was sitting in these groups and listening along, well, for instance, like I felt outcasted because I'm a person of color. So immediately I'm kind of met with an uncomfortableness because in the LDS church, it is predominantly white. In fact, black men were not allowed to hold the priesthood until 78. And so
1978?
Yes. Yeah, after they decided they need to make more money. So my dad, who was a convert, actually, my mom, she grew up in the church.
In the like a denominational church, you mean?
No, sorry, we refer to the church
as LDS. So
as
she
the
grew
LDS.
up. He grew up LDS. Is that what you were saying?
My father grew up Catholic.
Oh, okay.
And converted while he was in college.
And she was LDS. Okay.
Yes.
Was she a motive for him to convert?
Well, they kind of met in a singles ward, which where like single younger people go to church at the same time, so that they can meet each other.
For LDS.
Yes.
So he was already interested in it when he met her.
Yes, he was already a convert.
A lot of people will convert because they fall in love with someone, you know.
Right, but
But in this case, he was already converted or in conversion process, and he met
correct.
her, and
Correct.
that probably helped.
Yes.
And they're still practicing.
No, my excuse me. My dad, I was actually the last of my family to leave. My dad left, and I have a very distinct memory of him like having beer for the first time and me freaking out, being like, "Oh my God, you're gonna be an alcoholic," um,
How old
and
were you then?
probably like 17.
Okay.
I'm turning 23 soon,
Yeah.
so
So
still recent.
yes, it's pretty recent. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I left right before COVID. I started to like notice the inconsistencies, and I have a very strong sense of moral justice.
Meaning that's why you stayed for a while
No, that's why
beyond?
I left.
Why you left? Because the fact that you stayed, does that mean you were actually going to LDS
Yeah, I went.
church? Is they call them churches?
Yes,
Yeah,
church.
the LDS churches, while everybody else was gone and not going anymore.
Correct. I
And
went
they
by
had
myself.
abandoned pretty much. They weren't just like, I'm Mormon, but I'm not going to the church. They were like, I'm no longer anything.
Correct. Yeah.
And
it
none of them
was-
converted to another religion.
No. Well,
Just-
my dad converted to Catholic, and my sister does attend a Catholic church.
Oh, so he
occasionally.
went back to a Catholic church,
He
basically.
did. Yes.
Okay. And he still holds, does he basically hold the traditional Catholic views, I guess, or beliefs?
It's interesting. We don't really talk about it a whole lot.
Sure. Yeah, that's not uncommon for parents.
Yeah, it's. I think.
But like, would you be surprised if he said, "Yeah, I think Jesus was raised from the dead," or would you be like, "Really?"
No, I would not be surprised.
Okay,
at all.
you wouldn't be surprised if he believed that.
No.
Okay. And so the leaving for some of them was like toward agnosticism or atheism or skepticism or whatever you want to call it, and but your sister goes to a Catholic church and he goes to a Catholic church,
Correct. Yeah.
and your mom nowhere.
My mom is a relapsed Mormon fundamentalist.
You're gonna have to explain this. Relapsed in this case.
So
What does this
she-
mean in this context?
She lives in Utah. I have a stepmom, but
Yep.
my mother lives in Utah. Has been raised there her entire life, except for when my parents were together and we were moving around. And she also has bipolar disorder. And so I think that made her susceptible to getting back into the church.
So relapsed here means she fell back into the church.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I was thinking
That's
that.
from
'cause
my perspective.
I was like, lapsed. Okay, I get that. Relapsed. I guess that means she went back in, but I just wasn't sure.
Yes, yeah. Relapsed into
So
the
she's
faith.
now full on back into the Mormon church, but she's in Utah and not remarried or anything.
No, she's not. It's interesting because like she has a bunch of tattoos. She definitely stands out, and unfortunately, the church has like pretty much has kind of separated my mom and I from each other. Not to like the extent of like Scientology where they kidnap you, but to the extent of where my sister's queerness or my queerness has been a area of conflict. And it would be different if my mom had been conservative, religious my entire life, but she, raised me to be very independent and an independent thinker. So she wasn't like this, and I think that her mental illness made her more susceptible to accepting these things. And when she speaks about her faith, I can recognize like the bipolar traits, but she speaks like every other person that believes, this is the true church, and she kind of preaches to me. But I do attribute Mormonism to kind of losing my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's not just that church, but it's still conservative, and there's certain principles of it that is more cultish-like than other Protestant religions or Protestant Christian sex. Yeah.
If you go back to when you were 17, 18, I think was the time you were describing when you left, I guess, was your mom at that point relapsed into the...
She was casual about it. I still lived away from her. And so, just with her mental health, she was kind of going through that. And then I think she kind of latched onto that for like stability, like a lot of people do. Yeah, but I think when she was a little bit more stable, she wasn't going to church that often.
What was, if you had to pick one or two, three, whatever, like were the biggest factors for you in saying, okay, I just don't believe this stuff anymore? Did like, what were those things?
Hypocrisy. So I'll name them off. White supremacy, purity culture, and the inconsistent ethics.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, as a person of color, I stood out, and when I actually went to college, this was a little bit after, but I was thinking through these things. I started a podcast myself, kind of talking about my experience, my family's experience that have since left the church, and digging into the history of it. And Joseph Smith was notoriously racist. So were the other early members and leaders of the church. And the thing is, it's not just like a bad history, it's woven into it. My dad even worked at BYU, and I was still blind to the hypocrisy in like the church and like my beliefs and ethics at the time. But it's a bad place. The conformity of it. It just everything rubbed me the wrong way. So the white supremacy is rooted in its history, and it's still here. Like they go, they send people off to missions in predominantly brown countries to diversify their population and to get more money and to quote unquote spread the word.
When you say these things about like white supremacy and stuff, is that were there texts as part of the Book of Mormon that in some way gave you that impression, or was it just the practice of it? Because clearly, you don't really normally associate that with like the Old Testament or New Testament, right, which is focused heavily on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, did you see it that way, or?
My memory is kind of failing me. I'll say that religion is predominantly culture more than it is its actual text and holy scriptures, unless you're talking about Islam. But
so there wasn't like some obvious verse that.
Well, they interpreted the Curse of Cain, which I can't remember if that's.
Yes, it is in Genesis.
Right.
Yeah.
So they interpreted that. And they had a lot of publications, so they would talk about these things and put it out there that like, well, people with darker skin are results of the Curse of Cain.
Okay, so they did take a verse which was not in the Book of Mormon but in Genesis,
correct.
And they would then out of that develop a way of talking about it that would make a person with brown skin feel like you're part of that group.
Correct.
Okay. So it wasn't. So I guess then your change wasn't so much from like wrestling with, or at least at the time, wasn't wrestling with, is this stuff true? These historical things that we believe.
Well, the historical things, like it's a lot of BS. I actually. This was like kind of after I left, but the CES letter, the famous CES letter, which kind of breaks down a lot of people's faith. I have a very distinct memory of they hang up a lot of paintings or like prints of paintings in the church, and there's one of Joseph Smith translating the golden plates, and I remember learning that that is not how it is, like how it happened in real life, the way that it is depicted. He had a rock in a hat, and we were kind of told that that was like the seer stone, and it had like this very interesting, weird name to it that I'm not going to butcher. So I recognized that was BS, and there's a lot of aspects to it, and that also
So
made
that
me,
played a role in there too.
for sure, because I'm like, this man is a con man. He's been a con man his entire life. He's been doing the seer stone and all this like magic and trickery since he's been young. I also really, going to the history part, I was very passionate about feminism, and religion, and the patriarchy is very much tied to sexual abuse. And Joseph Smith famously had several wives, and would send people's husbands off on missions so that he could, bring them in. Anyway, one of his youngest wives were 14. And when I was researching for my podcast, because there's a lot of Mormon history, a lot. And there were these letters, and Emma, her first wife, they had a kind of live-in maid. I don't know, interesting dynamics, but she was pretty young, and Emma didn't specify what in her letter, but she said that she walked in on them. So clearly, as we know now, that's like a sign of grooming and abuse, and I immediately knew that. So that was something I kind of kept in my back pocket, and Mormons are very much kind of well trained on how to defend that, or be like, oh, well, we don't believe that now. Now, a lot of...
So it sounds like even in like sort of the moral impetus, the moral catalyst even affected the way you then were reading those things and so on.
For sure.
And then I guess later, as I understand you, it was a little bit later that you kind of were like, okay, yeah, no, I think most of this is just all BS. And did you feel then at that point, was that when you were in college? Like early college or ish?
When I got passionate about the BS in college.
Okay. Did at any point in that, did you say, oh, maybe the Mormon stuff is BS, but it's less BS elsewhere? Like my dad's version now, I don't know if he was back in it.
No.
Is a little less BS. Or did you just think, okay, it's all BS?
So that's the thing, is like other Christians love to shit on Mormons when I kind of get into a more atheist approach and talking. They're like, yes, like they're not true Christians, this and that. And I'm like, well, I can draw the same things, so you're not special either. So that's what also radicalized me, because I've always held spiritual beliefs, but then it opened up to like the more ancient history of Christianity and early Christianity, where I was like, like you guys, like Protestants or Catholics, like you guys aren't the heroes either. You misinterpret, and you're in my opinion, respectfully, your Bible is also evil, especially the Hebrew Bible. And now a lot of Christians will say, well, they take this out of context, or we shouldn't use this. And they pick and choose. Everyone picks and chooses. But, the rape that's done in the Bible or encouraged by God, the child sacrifice, the slavery, every single evil that you can think of happens, destroying other people's places of worship. I mean, those are worse, and I now would never, like, I'm not perfect, but I am a purist in this of what I follow, and if I ever did have religious belief, which I don't think I would, because all of it traces back to like ancient times where people did not hold correct moral ethics. I would never base my belief on a book, or at least it being a part of my own religion, that said any of that, ever. And I will hold that moral high ground.
Did you have a time then where you were, because you seem to be, you've got some knowledge of things that you saw as, atrocities.
Correct.
So where were you learning those? Did you already know about those? Were you reading those? Did you discover those because of a podcast, or because you were reading the Bible thinking, I'm trying to try and explore this myself?
Well,
I don't know.
Funnily enough, the dominant reason Christians become atheists is because they read the Bible. I studied religion like as a minor. It was under Middle Eastern and Islamic studies, but it was because I had like Arabic credits. And studying that made me even more radicalized against Islam too. But, Christianity is what I interact with the most. And so when I started studying it, I was like, damn, this is such a product of its people and culture. And Christians, even when I was Christian, I did not understand the complexity, the exegesis, really reading things in the historical and cultural context. And it makes it way more interesting. And so, I don't want to talk about Jesus's resurrection and saving our souls and dying for our sins. I want to talk about how early Christianity was way more, quote unquote, progressive, and women were priests at a certain time, and the reason why a lot of, like, the Roman Church appropriated Christianity and all of their, like, sexist beliefs and their capitalist view and conquering influenced it. And you can see that in the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church today.
And were you learning, did you feel like you were learning this as you were taking classes?
As I was taking classes, as I talked to my professors.
These are very definitive views, yeah. Right.
I just went to the library.
So you were doing a mix of reading. Were you actually reading? Did you actually like read the Pentateuch and the Deuteronomy and these books?
Yeah, I
or
mean,
were you just? Yep.
It was a mix of both. I'm not going to say I'm a scholar. I can only devote so much time to so many things.
So you did a little bit of because of classes. Is that right? You had a class like where you'd have to read some primary source, but you'd also get lectures.
Correct.
Is that right? And that was. Would you say that was a bigger influence than social media stuff?
Absolutely.
Than like the TikTok-y YouTube world or whatever?
Absolutely.
Because that was what you feel. Is that because of the sources? You felt like these were scholars?
Yes. I mean,
Yep.
I trusted these people. Like the.
Was there one particular that shaped your views when you were in school?
I know
You don't
Bart.
have to name them necessarily. I'm just curious if there was one. That's all I'm
I
saying.
know Bart Ehrman is very popular because of his resources that he provides to layman people. But I listened to his talks afterwards. But it's a mix of professors. I think my first class that was literally called like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is what inspired it. And like reading the original text and reading the translations and like, I mean, it all starts with Genesis, and I could talk about that for hours on end and unravel the whole thing. So,
Did you read all of Genesis then when you were in that class, or just a part of it? Do you recall?
only a part of it. We focus on certain aspects. Again, I'm not going to say I'm a scholar. I'm not going to say that I know everything. But I do know that it's man-made, and I can be confident in that. And I know that's egotistic, or some people would find that egotistical. But I think I'm proud that I can say that freely, and I don't mean it in a hateful way. But it motivates me to be sure that I can defend people's rights. Because, you have this text, and then you have the culture, you have the history, that influences every single denomination. But the text matters. And as a communication major, rhetoric is my passion. So, the rhetoric that is used in the Bible and the rhetoric that's used today correspond, and it's ebbing and flowing into different conversations.
So because you had a religious upbringing, your whole framework of morality and meaning, things like this, were obviously, I assume, sort of along that horizon line of those beliefs, just in big picture at least. So when you just jettisoned all that, what became, or what has become, in I guess it's just a few years, do you see yourself as sort of like on a journey to construct a new horizon line that gives order and meaning and purpose, or how do you see that now?
I did miss out on that. This is kind of like part of the Jack Mormon thing, but my mom's side of the family, who grew up Mormon, they were very spiritual. So, which is a very broad term, but it's okay to be broad. That influenced my beliefs. That influenced my meaning and purpose, and that you can make your own.
As you changed.
I still held those beliefs while I was still an active member. I just was slowly kind of sitting back and being like, okay, well, I feel like I should be here, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I also didn't want to lose like a community.
I guess I'm more referring to like where you are now.
Oh, where I am
23,
now.
I think you said you were.
Mm-hmm.
SSA convention.
Right.
Vanessa,
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself as sort of on a journey, which would not be a surprise? You're not like, you're in your early 20s. It's pretty normal to be on a journey. But do you see like, oh, I now more have this I feel like I have a lot of this worked out now, but in a very different framework? Or do you, because it's not like when you have these books, as you were saying, you get at least some theological framework that gets repeated and consistently across these texts. And so when you talk to these people, whether Islamic or Jewish or Christian, they have at least some framework, which is fairly common actually in that sense. They're all theistic, and so they see that the earth is temporary in the sense that our life on earth, is temporary, and there's a larger eternal reality, things like this. So, and that informs the whole framework. It's not just always about rules. There's a whole framework that a person's living with. And when you jettison that or depart from that or lose that faith, however you want to describe it, the question is what then fills that vacuum? How do you see what has replaced it? How would you describe that?
What has replaced those?
As like a religious framework of ultimate reality, something to that effect. Do you believe? In other words, you probably I'm in my mind sort of assuming, well, you probably don't believe we live for eternity now, or you probably don't believe there's hope like the resurrection of Jesus indicates, or there's ultimate justice or whatever. Those are all things that are part of the story of Jesus. So I'm curious, what's replaced that? How do you view? What would you call it, or how would you describe it?
Well, I would say like I have a personal spiritual identity that kind of guides my meaning and how I go about life.
And you would use the term spiritual?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And what do you mean by that word then? And or do you mean that? And again, I'm not like challenging it. I'm truly just trying to figure out. Because normally spirit is used in the sort of it's often a biblical term, right? The spirit, and it means that there's a layer of reality that's not material. Yeah. Material part of the universe. Is that what you mean?
I'm hesitant to say because it is a very personal thing.
Sure.
And when I struggle with my atheist beliefs, it is can be, I don't want to say doom and gloom, but it is very humbling. So I do keep those things a little separate. my belief in my personal higher power that I believe exists inside me and everywhere else, and also the unknowingness of the universe and the vastness and how small we are and how we have no idea what happens after this, and how there is unfortunately no real evidence of a soul, of an afterlife. So I don't necessarily bring that up among my non-believing friends because I can't justify that. And if I can't justify that, I won't share that.
So it sounds like what you're saying is your sort of personal deep intuition is that there is something immaterial or spiritual about reality
Right.
that you experience that's not necessarily within the parameters of science or the material universe or something.
Right.
Is that the way?
Yeah.
And therefore, when you're not necessarily shouting this from the rooftops at SSA,
Oh, hell no.
even though you sort of operate with that sense that that is the truth.
I do, but that's the thing, is that is very much a personal, internal thing. Here, I'm talking about how it affects other people, the people that are being oppressed by religion. And so I think my personal beliefs that really don't affect anybody. I mean, I discuss those things with my very close friends, where we discuss meaning and purpose of life. When I'm here, I'm not discussing that. I am discussing philosophical things, but I kind of keep that as at arm's length, or like political things or scientific things. I keep that at arm's length of my own personal beliefs,
Yeah.
actually.
Do you think that whatever that spiritual undefined thing is, do you think of that couldn't be connected to God in some way in the traditional sense?
Not in...
And I don't, and just to be really clear,
Yeah.
because I teach Greek and Latin, so I read the Greek philosophers and so on. So they speak of God in what's called the classical theistic sense. Aristotle spoke of God, Plato, and there's some aspects about the way they describe God that's similar to the biblical God. And then there's, of course, they weren't Jews or Christians, and there's a bunch of things that are not the same. But they rejected the ideas of like Zeus. They would have said Zeus is BS.
Right.
But they still believed in something, as you're describing, spiritual, something deeper to reality that they applied the word God to, let's just say.
Right.
And they even said things like God is wise and God is good and things like this. But they didn't have a book, like you were saying. There was no book that they were all referring to. They were trying to extrapolate even the nature of God in a more philosophical or metaphysical way.
Right.
So when I ask you, do you see that this idea of a spiritual reality that you feel like you experience, do you think, well, that could be connected to this larger idea of God in some way?
For sure.
Okay.
I didn't touch on the God aspect. I'm a little afraid to. I know this is for your personal podcast, but I believe in a higher power, but I extrapolate the ego of it. I don't believe it's a man. I don't believe it and like ego in the broader sense, I don't believe it requires worship.
Do you think the Bible
or
teaches that
revenge.
God is a man?
Absolutely. It reveals it, especially the Hebrew Bible.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Because I thought about this actually in the last year, is that this verse, let us make humanity, the word is man in the old versions, but the word is just Adam, the word for human. Let us make humanity in our own image. And then it says male and female. And I think the traditional Christian view is that it's that the image of God, the likeness of God, God didn't create humans unisex. So in order to understand what God is like, you need both a male and female to understand what God is like. I think that's a pretty traditional view. So I was saying that because I don't think the traditional view is that God has a sex, that he is, even though it commonly refers to God in the with masculine pronouns and so on.
Correct.
I think the theological view is God is not sexual either way.
How is God presented? How is God used, either rhetorically or well, it's mostly everything communicationally. How is it used?
I totally
Sure.
agree with that. I wasn't trying to not deny that or whatever.
Right.
I was just saying I think the theological tradition is
let's
that he's
see.
not strictly male or female. Yeah, because he's not
Theologically,
corporeal.
correct. Practically, and what actually exists in the world, I highly disagree. There's
Yeah.
woman, there's the man, then there's God. And everyone refers to God as he.
See, yeah.
It
And the
is
Bible does.
and it's a
for sure.
patriarchal religion, and that
Yep.
that is extrapolated from God and how man has created God, and man rules God and uses it to their own advantage.
And by man there you mean male.
Correct.
The males. Yeah. So again, I was not really trying to contest that part. I was only
Yeah.
trying to say that Genesis is usually the basis for the theological tradition in Christianity, that God is not strictly, he is not strictly speaking male or female. But you are right, in practical terms, God is spoken of and thought of as male.
Right.
I
But
don't deny that at
yeah, and I do love getting into the feminist. I don't know why it's always considered feminist when you include women, but sometimes it's considered as a feminist approach, that God is neither male nor female, which makes sense. You know, like why are there limitations on God if he is limitless?
Yes, that's right.
So I 100%.
Yeah, so I
Great.
get your, so it is, so do you find yourself now, given these other things you've said, do you find yourself here, because you say you believe in a higher power, I'm guessing that's not going to be a real popular
Yeah, I don't.
view. Yeah.
I don't want to say I feel embarrassed, but I'm not.
Why would you feel embarrassed? Because the fact that you were about to
Because
say
I
it means there's a
can't-
slight sense that you might feel embarrassed.
Well, when I talk about things that I am right on, I can't say that I'm right on my own spiritual beliefs. I can defend it. I can't defend my spiritual beliefs. But the reason I do believe those things is because it gives me meaning and purpose. So manifestation and being able to have control of your life is very important to me. Because if I didn't have that, I don't think I'd want to be here. Which I know some Christians especially will be like, well, you have no purpose without God. And that's kind of true.
You
for me.
you seem almost like you sort of half agree with them, which is why you still think there's something spiritual in our
Right. But I
experience.
think my relationship with God is entirely different. So, like, I prayed to God about coming on this trip and opening up opportunities and meeting the right people and advancing my life and networking. And
So you pray still some.
I did. I prayed to find my chapstick this morning.
Do you ever?
Like, actually.
Honestly, that's very funny because like one of the things I've made absolutely sure I had in my backpack I came today was I was finding my chapstick. Do you also like have music that you used to listen to that you liked that was Christian that you're like, yeah, I still really like listening to that?
I need to listen to that again because
Like Amazing Grace or something.
not that like
I ask
like
people about that song. A lot.
it's a Mormon song, but it's where they have the men and the women sing different verses overlapping each other, and it's so beautiful to me. And I can't name it off the top of my head, so
Sure.
I apologize.
I mean, Christianity, right, has been around 2,000 years. There's a lot of very high quality
Well, it's specifically
music.
LDS.
Oh, I
song.
see. It's a very
Yeah.
specific LDS song.
Hymn.
Yeah. Even that, still, you're talking many, many, many decades. So
Correct.
no surprise there'd be some music produced
Yeah.
along the way that you like.
And I mean, even among my secular friends, we were like, Catholicism, it's evil, but man, they got the aesthetics down. And man, I love the art that they produce. And sure, I can attribute that to religion. What if religion didn't exist? Would we have that art?
Probably not. Not that
Probably
particular
not.
art. But the Greeks, I agree with you, the Greeks did great art as well.
Yeah, stories are.
But it's also true they were inspired by a religious ethic and value system and so on.
Right.
That probably did inspire us a good bit of it. But still,
Yeah.
humans are artists by nature.
Correct, and I still wear a cross. I didn't bring it.
Yeah.
I sometimes I wear it in the goth way for the aesthetic, and I know some people would be upset with that. I did start converting to Catholicism, so I feel like for my
You actually started converting to the
yes, for my terrible boyfriend that I luckily broke up with, and now he's becoming a priest. Shout out. So I feel like I am
No
well.
one is going to top that mic drop moment. Wow, that was very well delivered. It's almost like you set up the entire 40-minute interview for that one moment. Like you could do comedy with that delivery.
Yeah, well, comm major
Yeah.
was my skill.
Sorry. I know you were being very serious, but that was
No,
yeah.
not
So so obviously you still have an open door to some extent, I guess is the point on some of these things, is you're still on a
No.
journey. No, I meant you were on a journey of the way you understand spirituality and your belief in high power. And that
I mean, when I was really down bad, I was praying the rosary. I stopped because it started to make me feel icky. But
So do you feel like the full-on atheist, strict, we'll call it atheist view, is not providing or does not have on offer enough meaning in some way?
correct.
Okay. That's what I figured. And your relationship with your boyfriend started to influence the way you thought and acted in some ways, or what you were drawn to? It sounds like.
It did affect the way that
Because you were going through
I
that.
acted. But
That's
it,
not uncommon, is it? I mean, that we get influenced by the people we hang around with, and there's
well, I was converting for him.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
if you're someone you love,
Right.
you start to, like, it's just normal. It's actually healthy if you're going to live, like I've been married now almost 30 years, and, my wife and I both of us have had to choose to do things to make the other person happy, or our life would be miserable. And we're both super glad we have.
Are you guys both Christian?
Yeah. But we also, and that has made it a lot easier, because we have not really ever had like some deep struggle over our Christianity. But, and that has clearly made it easier, but it's nonetheless, we've had to lay aside things that were really, really important to us that would have seemed like we needed this in our life for this to be what makes us fully happy. And we've found over decades that there are times you might think that, but that long term it's been worth sacrificing some of these things. But it needs to be both people and all kinds. All that is to say, in a healthy relationship, two people living together for a long time, there's no way you could be happy if you both insisted on that.
I was going to be
perfectly
tolerant.
Self-actualized.
I was going to be tolerant. It came down to the conservatism, which is where I think my passion lies, my anger, my fire lies.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. The sort of social justice was a big part of how you've come to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find how like, does justice include punishment for wrongdoing in your view of justice? Does that sound like a good thing? Potentially good thing?
No, actually, I don't.
So there should be no punishment in your concept of justice?
No, just like in a practical way. Like, I don't believe we should play God and kill people. I
didn't even say kill. I just meant punishment.
I think about, like, okay, jail is for protecting people and their own safety. But when I think about the ultimate punishment, the ultimate, capital punishment, even though a lot of Christians believe in it, which is very interesting, and I think that's the conservative in them. I think that is playing God, and I don't believe the government should do that.
Do you think that their belief that people are that we exist eternally plays a role in it? That if the state decides to punish someone with capital punishment, which I don't hardly think any Christians think, the ones who do believe in capital punishment don't think every crime should be a capitally punished crime, right?
I mean, I think society should punish those that deserve to be punished. Can I give a way that's practical? No. But there's enough punishment done on other people that I can defend against that I don't necessarily think a whole lot about.
Yeah, I think the traditional Christian moral view of justice, it's, to put it very simply, or at least one of the major views, is that because of the cross, idea that Jesus died for you, is that sin and wrongdoing damages people, and because those people have value, justice is a way of showing that that person had value, that it was wrong to harm them. And the actual word for punishment in Greek is the word for value, like the price of something.
And sin means missing the mark.
Yes, yeah, there you go. So anyway, that's the traditional idea. We didn't need to get into a long discussion about justice. I was just curious because of your other things you were saying. I was kind of curious how you understood it. That's all.
Well, if I believed in an afterlife, I don't think, and ultimate justice was served, I don't think hell would not exist, or you would just live through the things that you've put other people through. I think that
which I guess that would be the hell.
Right, but not eternal fire and, boiling alive or anything like that. But yeah.
Well, I'd like to keep talking.
Yeah.
That's such a good ending. Terrible ending in one sense, but a good ending.
It never ends, actually. It's for eternity.
It's a never ending, yeah. But really enjoyed talking to you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Thoroughly. So thanks for sitting with Faith in Question.
Of course.